Hello everyone, welcome to the Movie Plot Recap channel. I've been wanting to share a fantasy story with you for quite some time. So today we're diving into a fantasy tale from the talented German nation. For generations, a family has been safeguarding a mysterious book. This book contains many fascinating things, such as alien-like creatures and a portal, but for some unknown reason, the family has been protecting everything within its pages. Now, the book has reached the last generation of the family. However, this final heir knows nothing about its contents. So, what exactly is this book? Why has the family been protecting it? And beyond the book, what about the teleportation portal, time dilation, mythical creatures, and other elements that bring this fantasy story to life? It's going to be an exciting journey. Watch the full video, and don't forget to subscribe to the Movie Plot Recap channel and show your support. Today, we're going to explore a German fantasy series called the Gryphon, released in 2023. At the beginning of the story, a young boy named Mark wakes up in his bed. In his room, a cake is floating in the air like a balloon. It's Mark's birthday. As he waits for the cake to be cut, he sneaks a taste. But suddenly a strange sound echoes from the wall. In the same room, there's also a butterfly statue. Little Mark doesn't understand what's happening. Curious, he moves toward the wall where the sound is coming from, and suddenly a door opens. At that moment, Mark's father rushes in and urgently tells him, "Mark, let's go quickly." Before taking Mark with him, he smashes all the statues in the room, including the butterfly statue. So Mark's father urgently calls him to leave quickly. At the same time, he calls Mark's 16-year-old brother, Thomas. Then, without hesitation, their father hands Thomas a book and says, "Thomas, you have to take care of this." Meanwhile, young Mark looks up at the staircase and notices the broken butterfly statue that his father had smashed earlier, staring at it as if it had come to life. Just then, as their father hurriedly prepares to leave, their mother appears in the middle of the road, stopping the car. "What are you doing to the children?" she demands. "Everything you're seeing is just an illusion. You're mentally affected. Please, don't take the kids. You need to go to the hospital." But Mark's father refuses to listen. "Everything I saw was real. Our children are in danger," he insists. Without another word, he speeds off in the car. Suddenly, in a terrifying moment, his face bursts into flames as little Mark watches from behind. At this point, Mark jolts awake. It was all a dream. Now he has grown up and is 16 years old. Everything we just saw was Mark's dream, but in reality, it all truly happened. After taking his children in the car, Mark's father drove to a location, set himself on fire, and died. That's why Mark keeps having this recurring dream of his father's face burning. It haunts him, leaving him deeply disturbed. Now, Mark is getting ready for school. His mother, a nurse who works night shifts, is sleeping on the sofa. Quietly, Mark lifts her and places her in bed before packing his things. Then he heads straight to school. Technically, Mark doesn't need to attend school. He and his brother Thomas run a music shop and business is going well. So why does he still come to school? The reason is simple. He brings music cassettes from the shop and rents them out to students for money. After finishing his side hustle, he enters the classroom. However, his teacher immediately overacts. "Mark, why are you even coming to school? You already have a business." The teacher snaps. "Why are you staring? Do you want to hit me? Your brother Thomas hit me once. That's why I sent him out of school." He continues ranting. "Go ahead, hit me. You don't need to be here anyway." Mark remains silent. But in his imagination, he pictures himself striking the teacher and breaking his mouth. Just then, a new girl walks into the classroom. Her name is Becky. The moment Mark sees her, he immediately takes a liking to her. Meanwhile, Becky notices Mark staring and seems to be searching for an answer. When Mark steps out of school, his brother Thomas is waiting for him. "Today is your birthday, Mark. Let's head to the music shop and celebrate." Thomas starts leading the way, and as they drive, Mark turns to him and asks, "Why don't you come home? Do you know how much Mom misses you?" Thomas responds, "Well, why did you call me crazy and send me to the doctor? It's better for both of us to stay apart." Without further discussion, they continue straight to their music shop. The shop, a worker named Momo, who is also Mark's friend, is in the middle of an argument with the delivery man. Mark and Thomas quickly intervene, sending Momo back to work. With that settled, The two brothers head to the office room where they are alone. Thomas looks at Mark and says, "Today is your 16th birthday, so I have a gift for you." As soon as Mark receives it, he places it on the desk. "This is the Chronicle book," Thomas reveals. "Everything Father and I told you is true. When I turned 16, he gave this book to me, and now I'm passing it on to you. This book holds the signatures of our ancestors," Thomas explains. "No, it's your turn to sign it. You are going to be a guardian of the Black Tower." Mark's anger flares up. "Are you crazy? Mom told me that everything Dad saw wasn't real. He was mentally ill, and now you're imagining things just like him." Thomas remains firm. "I'm not imagining anything. The Black Tower is real, and we need it bought." Mark scoffs. "There's no such thing as a Black Tower. You showed me this book, and sure, there's a signature in it. There's also a signature in the so-called lost letter, but that only proves one thing: Dad was mentally ill, and so are you." Thomas doesn't back down. "Just sign it," he insists. Still fuming, Mark replies, "Fine, I'll sign it just as you want, but I'm taking this book home to read it myself. And if I don't find proof, if the Black Tower isn't real, you have to agree to see a doctor and get treatment. Is that a deal?" Thomas nods. "Okay." He hands Mark a pen. Mark is ready to sign. He begins writing his name, placing his signature normally. But the moment he reaches the lost letter, something strange happens. He feels himself being pulled inside the signature, as if traveling to another world. Shocked, he instinctively rips the lost letter. Thomas watches and says, "See, you tore the lost letter too. Now do you understand? No one does it on purpose." Mark doesn't realize that he has also seen the Black Tower. Confused, he takes the book and heads home. When he arrives, his mother looks worried. Mark has never been late before, and today he missed his usual timing. Fear grips his mother. First, her husband was labeled mentally ill, then her eldest son, Thomas. Now she worries that Mark might be following the same path. Sensing her concern, Mark quickly reassures her, "Mom, I ran into Thomas on the way. I told him to come home. That's why I was late." His mother exhales in relief. "Oh, is that so?" With that, Mark heads to his room. He tries to focus on looking for a job, but curiosity keeps pulling him back to the book. What could be inside? Unable to resist any longer, he opens it. The pages reveal an unfamiliar cat-like creature. There's also information about an alien species called slave hunters. The book contains detailed descriptions of them, along with a separate sheet of paper. On that paper, there's something even more intriguing. It speaks of the Black Tower. According to the book, the Black Tower isn't located in this galaxy. It exists in another galaxy in an entirely different world. However, there's a secret portal on Earth that leads to it, but the world of the Black Tower is not safe. A terrifying creature resides there, Gryphon. It is a massive being, as large as both a lion and an eagle combined. The Gryphon is an enormous creature, as massive as both a lion and eagle combined. It feeds off the energy of the people on that planet, draining their power for its own survival. If these creatures ever escape from their world, they will destroy all humans across other realms. Preventing their emergence has been the mission of Mark and Thomas' ancestors for generations. For centuries, their family has worked to contain the Gryphon, ensuring it never escapes. However, despite their efforts, they have never been able to destroy it completely. This is what is written in the book. Mark stares at the words, feeling uneasy. He doesn't dismiss them as mere madness, but he also struggles to believe them. Finally, he shuts the book and turns around. The moment he does, he finds himself standing in the world of the Black Tower. The landscape is unlike anything he has ever seen. There is land both above and below, with a massive pillar connecting the two. As Mark walks forward, confused and disoriented, a sudden sound catches his attention. Someone or something is warning him not to step forward. Before he can react, he triggers a trap. A monstrous alien-like beast appears, one of the slave hunters. Terrified, Mark turns and runs, but before he can get away, he falls into a deep pit. The beast approaches, ready to attack. It looms over him, prepared to destroy him. But just as it strikes, Mark suddenly finds himself back on Earth. Breathing heavily, he looks around in shock. He has no idea what just happened. Maybe it was just a dream. Mark convinced himself that everything he experienced wasn't real. With that thought in mind, he heads to school. Meanwhile, in class, a girl named Sarah warns Becky about Mark. "I saw you talking to him," Sarah says. "You should stay away from him. His family is crazy. You never know what they might do." But despite Sarah's warning, Becky remains interested in Mark. She continues talking to him, and Mark enjoys her company. After class, Mark visits his therapist. He tells them everything, how he felt like he traveled to another world while reading the book. The therapist listens carefully and then reassures him, "You're getting better, Mark. You're just processing the trauma from your father's death. These are all just hallucinations." Mark is told that everything will be fine and that what he's experiencing is merely his imagination. Hearing this, Mark leaves and heads to their music shop, where he sees his brother Thomas. His eyes land on the book Thomas gave him. To his shock, there's nothing unusual in it. No strange creatures, no black tower. Was it all just an illusion? Doubt fills his mind as he recalls what the therapist said. Maybe I'm just imagining everything. But Thomas, seeing his confusion, insists otherwise. You need to see the truth for yourself. There's no other way. Have to show it to you in person. As the brothers talk, Becky suddenly arrives at the shop. Mark turns to her, shifting his focus. He starts chatting with her. Unable to ignore how much he likes being around her, Mark spent time with Becky before heading home. When he arrived, he saw his mother and Thomas talking. It had been a long time since the three of them sat together as a family, but the conversation quickly became tense. His mother kept talking to Thomas, pressing him about his beliefs. When she said he was going crazy, just like their father, Thomas erupted in anger and stormed out. Mark followed him, trying to console him. "Look, Thomas' mom isn't entirely wrong. Maybe all of this is just a hallucination," Mark said carefully. "I'm not saying you won't get better, you just need help." But Thomas wasn't convinced. Instead, he turned to Mark. "Come with me. I'll show you the truth." Thomas took Mark to an old graveyard, a place filled with statues of angels and mythical creatures. The area was abandoned, and no one came there anymore. It had been closed off for a long time. As they drove up to the site, Mark noticed two large statues standing outside the building, one of an angel and the other of Satan. The entrance doors were locked, blocking their way inside. So instead of going through the front, they climbed up the building and entered from the top. Inside, they found a collection of old artifacts. Among them were some of their father's belongings. Mark's eyes landed on a particular box. He picked it up and opened it, but it was empty. Something important should have been inside, but their father must have hidden it elsewhere. As Mark held the box in his hands, a sharp needle suddenly emerged from it. A sharp needle suddenly emerged from the box, its tip covered in blood. Before Mark could react, the needle retracted, vanishing back into the box. At that moment, a secret basement door opened. Inside, they found the missing item from the box. It was a strange tool, something that resembled both a chain and a carpenter's instrument. Mark picked it up, feeling its weight in his hand. Suddenly, the chain began to move on its own, shifting as if it were alive. Thomas looked at him and said, "This tool is the only thing that can kill the creature known as the Gryphon." Thomas explains that the creature is searching for their family because in order to live, it needs their blood and only they can kill it. He then asks Mark to join him and help on his journey. Mark still can't believe all these things and remains confused, so Thomas tells him to take time to decide. Eventually, they both return the way they came. When they climb up the building, they notice that the Satan statue, which had been outside, is now at the top of the building. Thomas wonders how this statue appeared there, since it wasn't there before, and with confusion, he heads back down. While both are trying to reach their car, the Satan statue suddenly attacks them as if it were alive. Terrified, they watch as the angel statue comes to life and starts fighting the Satan statue. They manage to escape, run inside, and hide behind a wall. Mark closes his eyes and tells himself that nothing is real as time passes. Soon, a bright light fills the space. It is now morning. They had spent the whole night there. Mark comes out in search of his brother. He finds the angel statue still in its place, but the Satan statue is broken into pieces. Now he begins to doubt whether what they saw during the night was real. Mark approaches the angel statue, expresses his thanks for its help, and asks where his brother went. A cleaning lady sees him talking to the statue and asks, "Who are you talking to?" Noticing her, Mark silently returns to his music shop. He searches both his home and his shop for his brother but cannot find him anywhere. While in the shop, he hears voices coming from the book. He takes the book, places it on the shelf, and becomes confused, wondering if it is merely a hallucination. Later, Mark visits the therapist and recounts everything that happened. As usual, the therapist dismisses it as nothing. Feeling somewhat clear, Mark walks outside and sees Becky, and only then does he realize that Becky is the therapist's daughter. Meanwhile, Ben meets his lover Sarah. Both are Mark's classmates, and they plan to hold a party in an abandoned theater that belongs to Sarah's father. Ben asks Sarah to retrieve the key so they can use the theater for the party. Back at the music shop, Mark wonders where his brother might have gone. He opens the book and discovers a map showing the location of the portal. While studying the map, a small insect-like creature appears and tries to attack him. In that moment, Mark finds himself in the world where the Black Tower exists. Meanwhile, Mark's mom reports to the police that her Thomas is missing after having spoken angrily with him. At the same time, Becky grows increasingly interested in Mark and wants to know more about him, especially since her father is the therapist, though he refuses to divulge any patient details due to confidentiality. Becky reaches out to Sarah, asking about him. Sarah then takes Becky to the library where they read a newspaper article. They learn that father took Mark and Thomas to a place, and their mother informed the police, leading to a chase. Suddenly, father entered a room and was burned to ashes. When the police arrived, they found no body, only scattered sands. This discovery makes Becky even more intrigued and eager to know more about Mark. Meanwhile, Mark, who has traveled to another world, finally sees his brother. The two are reunited and sit together near a fire. Thomas explains that this world is very different. It has many floors, like an apartment. The lowest floor is where plants grow. Other floors contain various strange things. And on the top floor, no one has ever reached, so nobody has seen the sky on this planet. Thomas says, Mark, now that you have come, let us join together and kill that creature. Mark replies that he is not interested in killing any creature. He only wants to return home. Thomas then tells him to go back through the portal he came from. Mark counters that he did not come through the portal. Instead, while looking at the book, he thought of coming to him, so he came here. Shocked, Thomas exclaims that anyone who comes must do so through the portal. Only a traveler can come here without one. Therefore, Thomas declares that Mark is a traveler. Mark doesn't understand anything and asks Thomas that they sleep so they can talk more tomorrow. Suddenly, Thomas, who is sleeping beside him, is no longer there. When Mark asks about him, someone tells him that slave hunters have arrived and that they must run and escape. They start running. At that moment, Becky comes to the music shop to see Mark. Meanwhile, the slave hunters capture Thomas and take him along with them. While hiding, Mark resolves to save his brother and not let this chance slip by. He tries to attack one of the slave hunters, but instead, he is teleported back to the music shop where Becky is. In the confusion, Mark accidentally hits Becky, and she falls onto a sofa. Becky asks him why he hit her, and at that moment, Momo enters and asks how Mark managed to get inside. Simultaneously, in the alien world, one slave hunter meets another, his master, who informs him that he has captured the traveler's brother. The master instructs him to take the brother to the place where the other slaves are kept, then goes to an isolated area, expecting his superior to arrive very soon. During this time, Mark decided to tell Becky and Momo everything that had happened. He knew they wouldn't believe him. So he made a choice. He would show them proof. He took them to the place where the statue of Satan had attacked. But when they arrived, a statue stood there completely still, unbroken and undamaged. It attacked us, Mark insisted, and that statue over there saved us. Becky looked at the scene, unconvinced. Momo, frustrated, adjusted his glasses. I can barely see as it is. My legs hurt from walking this far, and now you're telling us this nonsense. Annoyed, he snapped. Are you messing with us? Just stop. Let's go. With that, both Becky and Momo turned and walked away. Mark stood there, his anger boiling inside him. The angel statue, you moved it, didn't you? Mark stared at the statue, realization dawning on him. Suddenly, the ground beneath the Black Tower's location began to tremble. Somewhere in the other world, a monster spoke ominously. It's happening soon. Though Mark didn't fully understand what was unfolding, he knew they would find out in time. At this point, Mark had only one true friend, Momo. Determined to prove he wasn't lying, Mark went to Momo's house again. I swear I'm telling the truth. Please, just come with me. Reluctantly, Momo agreed. Together, they started searching for the portal's location using the book. Following the book's instructions, they eventually opened a mysterious door. Beyond it, they saw something incredible, a glowing portal leading to another world. Momo stared in disbelief. They both stepped inside. The moment Momo entered, something strange happened. His vision cleared. His legs no longer hurt. Every problem he had was gone. Amazed, he removed his glasses. This place it's unbelievable. But before they could process everything, the portal door slammed shut behind them. There was no way to open it from the outside. They were trapped. Thinking quickly, Mark closed his eyes and focused. He willed himself to return home. And because he was a traveler, he vanished instantly, returning to Earth without needing the portal. But Momo wasn't so lucky. As an ordinary human, he remained trapped in the world of the Black Tower. Back at home, Mark suddenly realized Momo hadn't come with him. He's still stuck there. Panicked, he grabbed the book again, determined to return and rescue his friend. Just as he was about to travel back, his mother entered the room. Her eyes landed on the book. Instantly, her expression turned to fear. That book had already ruined everything. Her husband, her eldest son Thomas, and now Mark too. Without hesitation, she grabbed the book, slammed the door shut, and locked it. Mark pounded on the door, shouting, "Open the door," but his mother wouldn't listen. Meanwhile, in the world of the Black Tower, something terrifying was happening. The monster's realm began to shake violently. A portal cracked open, revealing Father inside it. But what had happened to him? And what about the Gryphon? No one there could understand what was going on. Only a human could communicate through it. As soon as the portal's door closes, Mark realizes something. He has no choice but to go back inside. Momo is still trapped in the world of the Black Tower. Mark takes a deep breath and makes a decision. He turns to Becky, handing her the book. "Look, I know you don't believe me, but please, just trust me this time. Momo is stuck in that world. I have to go find him." Becky looks uncertain, but Mark continues. "Take this book to my mom. Both of you open the portal together. That's how we'll get back." Seeing the determination in his eyes, Becky finally nods. With that, Mark leaves for the world of the Black Tower. Meanwhile, Becky, instead of giving the book to Mark's mother, takes it with her. Becky, along with Sarah and Ben, opens and sees the book. "What book is this?" they ask, flipping through the pages. Inside, they find dried flowers pressed between the pages. A strange note is written beside them. "If water touches these flowers, a terrible creature will form." Curious, they decide to test it. Sarah pours a drop of water on one of the dried flowers. Nothing happens. Ben takes another dried flower and drops it into a glass of water. Still nothing. "See, this book is nonsense." Ben scoffs, even though they start doubting its contents. Becky insists on following what the book says about the portal, so they decide to try it. Meanwhile, in the world of the Black Tower, a terrifying scene unfolds. A group of captured slaves is gathered at a massive fortress. A strong and brave man is forced to sit on a grand throne. Suddenly, from behind the throne, a monstrous hand emerges. The hand of a terrifying beast. Whispers ripple through the crowd. "That monster, it's the father." The creature begins speaking through the man, its voice echoing across the fortress. "Listen carefully. Obey and you will survive." At the same time, Mark is frantically searching for Momo. He scans the captured slaves, trying to spot any familiar faces. Then, out of nowhere, a masked man appears. "Follow me," the man says. Mark hesitates for a moment before deciding to trust him. They move through dark alleys until the masked man finally reveals his face. Momo. Mark's eyes widen in shock. But something is different. Momo now has a full-grown beard. "Wait, yesterday you didn't have a beard," Mark exclaims. Momo looks at him in disbelief. "Yesterday?" "Mark, I've been here for 3 weeks." Mark is stunned. Time in the Black Tower world moves faster than on Earth. Momo then delivers another shocking revelation. "The slave hunters have captured Thomas. We have to save him." Without hesitation, Mark and Momo set out to rescue Thomas, but the slave hunters spot them. A chase begins. They run as fast as they can, dodging through ruins and narrow passages. But soon they find themselves trapped. In front of them is a massive, deep pond. Behind them, the slave hunters are closing in. They only have 2 choices. Jump into the pond and risk drowning, or turn back and face the hunters. Mark and Momo stand at the edge of the pond, completely trapped. The slave hunters are closing in fast. They don't know what to do. Without hesitation, Mark grabs Momo and jumps into the pond. The cold water engulfs them, and just as they think they're sinking, they teleport. Suddenly, they find themselves back on Earth. Mark gasps for air, realizing he somehow brought Momo with him, but the others... Thomas, the captured slaves, they're still trapped in the Dark Tower world. Meanwhile, Becky, Ben, and Sarah continue trying to open the portal. They hold the book, reciting the instructions. Nothing happens? Okay, this is all fake, Ben scoffs, tossing the book aside. Frustrated, they leave. But as soon as they step outside, a new problem arises. A group of police officers spots them, mistaking them for thieves. The officers move in and arrest them. At the same time, something strange is happening back at Becky's house. Earlier, she had placed a dried flower from the book into water. Now that flower is alive. It has grown, twisting unnaturally. A mysterious new life is emerging from it. The next day, Mark and Momo finally accept the truth. The world of the Black Tower is real. Momo had been stuck there for 3 weeks, and Thomas is still a prisoner. They need to go back and save him. Meanwhile, in the world of the Black Tower, the monstrous father, a terrifying being who speaks through humans, summons his master, but the master has made a terrible mistake. He has spoken against Mark. The father's fury is immediate. With a single move, he kills the master. Then, without hesitation, he selects another person. You are the new master now. The crowd falls silent in fear. Back on Earth, Becky, Ben, and Sarah have been released by the police. Since they're just kids, their parents were called in and they were let go. At home, Becky checks on the flower. It has fully grown now, but there's no monster inside. Maybe the book was wrong after all. Maybe it is all just a lie. Becky's father, who is a therapist, arrives home. You and your friends are causing as much trouble as criminals, he says sternly. Give me the book. Becky hesitates, but then hands it over. That's it. It's over. The next day, Becky and the others head to school. They see Mark in the hallway, but they don't talk to him. When they ask about Mark, someone says he finally realized that the book is fake, just like his father. Just like his brother, he's just another lunatic. Hearing this, Mark feels a deep sadness. Meanwhile, Ben is planning a party at a movie theater. He's booked a DJ, but when he goes to confirm the sound system, someone else already booked it first. Ben doesn't know what to do. Just then, Mayuk, a girl from Mark's class, overhears the problem. I have a sound system, she says. Ben lights up with excitement. He has a huge crush on Maya. Together, they set up the theater, lighting, speakers, everything. The party is coming together perfectly. But at that exact moment, Mark is preparing to return to the Dark Tower world. Before he can leave, however, his mother arrives with people from a mental hospital. They're here to take Mark away. Mark knows the truth. Everything written in the book is real, but now the police have arrested his friends and everyone is trying to catch him. He can't let that happen. Before anyone can stop him, Mark climbs to the roof of a house and escapes. He needs to get back to the Dark Tower world. He doesn't need a portal. He can travel without one. But there's a problem. The book is missing. Without it, things will be harder. Still, he has no choice. He finds Momo. Just as they're about to leave, the people from the mental hospital grab them. Mark and Momo struggle, but they can't break free. Then 2 figures in hoodies appear. Before anyone realizes, they attack. One by one, they take down the hospital workers. The fight creates chaos. And in the confusion, Mark and Momo escape into the portal. As they disappear, one of the hooded figures steps forward. The hood falls slightly, revealing Mark, but Mark just left through the portal. So who is this? Mark's mother watches in shock. My son has changed a lot. Something isn't right. In the Dark Tower world, Mark and Momo sit near a fire, trying to catch their breath. The air is thick. The darkness feels alive. Suddenly, it starts raining. But this isn't normal rain because this world is like an apartment. Plants grow inside the walls. Monsters lurk in the shadows. Above them, there is an entire ocean, mountains, clouds, a world stacked on top of another world. Between the two, a box-like opening appears. Water starts pouring down. Momo's eyes widen. We have to run? No. Mark doesn't understand. Then Momo points at a flower. A spider-like insect crawls out of it. This is a bad insect. If it gets inside us, we're done for. Mark doesn't wait to ask questions. They run. They hide in a dark corner, staying as still as possible. The insects skitter across the walls, searching. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Becky sits in her room, staring at the flower. It looks normal, but suddenly, something moves. The insect was hiding inside. It lunges forward. Before Becky can react, it crawls into her mouth. Becky starts choking, struggling. Ben and Sarah panic. They rush to the kitchen, grab a stick, and force the insect out. They throw it in the trash, grab a box of salt, baking soda. They don't know. They dump it on top of the insect. The insect stops moving. It dies. A long silence follows. Then Becky speaks. The book was right, everything is real. Now, Becky and the others believe Mark, everything he said. The book, the Dark Tower World, the monsters, it's all real. So what did Mark tell them before he left? Take the book and go to my mother. Now, Becky, Ben, and Sarah bring their friends and get ready to meet Mark's mother. Meanwhile, in the Dark Tower world, it's the next day. The sun rises and something strange happens. The insects from last night, they're all dead. The sun killed them. Mark and Momo watch in surprise. So these insects are only strong when there's water. And today, there's good water nearby. They find a clear stream and start bathing happily, washing off the dirt and exhaustion from their journey. For a moment, they feel at peace, but that peace won't last. Back on Earth, a therapist stands in a dark room. A single flame flickers in front of him. In his hands, he holds a hoodie. He drops it into the fire. The hoodie burns. And it looks exactly like the one Mark was wearing, but how did the therapist get it? Who was the other Mark? No one knows yet. Back in the Dark Tower world in front of Father, a strange creature stands. It holds a box in its hands. The box is full of insects. The creature bows. Father, don't worry. That boy will never return to Earth. Father watches, silent. Just like how Mark never escaped before, we'll make sure he stays here forever. Mark and Momo move carefully through the world. Momo has been here for 3 weeks. In secret, he built a small hut in a hidden place. There's fresh water nearby, but it's also where the slave hunters come to collect water. Momo has been watching them. This is our chance, he says. If we follow them, we can find my brother Thomas. That's the plan. They prepare a trap to alert them when the slave hunters arrive, and then they wait. Back on Earth, Becky and the others finally reach Mark's mother. They tell her everything. The book, the monsters, the Dark Tower world. But she doesn't believe them. Before she can throw them out, a detective arrives at the house. According to police, Mark is the one who attacked the mental hospital workers. Now they're investigating. Becky takes a deep breath. She looks straight at the detective and says, "Do you know about Mark's father, his grandfather, his great-grandfather?" The detective frowns. All of them disappeared. One of them was even kept in jail, and then he suddenly vanished. It's all in your police reports. Have you ever checked them? Mark's mother shakes her head. This is nonsense, but the detective listens. For the first time, someone outside their group believes them. Becky continues, "My father is a therapist. He took the book. But anyway, I stole it from him. I gave the book to my friend Sarah. It's with her now." The same time, Sarah, Ben, and the others are setting up for the party. The lights, the speakers, the DJ booth, everything is almost ready. But there's a problem. Sarah's parents won't let her leave. In the Dark Tower world, Mark and Momo sit, waiting in the shadows. A mosquito lands on Mark's arm. Before he can swat it away, the mosquito flies off. It moves fast. Too fast. It doesn't stop until it reaches a fort. Inside, a strange creature named Manleth waits. The mosquito lands on his hand. Manleth smiles. So the boy is nearby. Manleth brings the mosquito close to his mouth. With a sharp bite, he swallows it whole. Mark's blood flows through him. In that instant, he knows everything. Mark, Momo. Their plan, Manleth's eyes gleam with dark amusement. He turns to the shadows and speaks. Send word to the spies in the human world. Find Mark, provoke him, make him walk. Meanwhile, on Earth, Becky rushes to Sarah. "Where's the book?" Sarah hesitates. "Ben has it, Ba. I can't come to the party. My parents won't let me." Becky doesn't waste time. She grabs Mark's mother and takes her to the party. In the Dark Tower world, Mark freezes because right in front of him is his father. But something feels wrong. Momo sees the look on Mark's face. "Mark, what's wrong?" Mark doesn't answer. Because deep inside he knows his father isn't real, it's Manleth, and he's here to mess with his mind. Back on Earth, Becky's father, the therapist, meets with another man. They talk in hushed voices about Manleth, about father, about what's really going on. The truth is shocking, because Becky's father is Manleth. This whole time, he was working to send Mark back to the Dark Tower. Mark's brother Thomas, he needs Mark's blood to gain the power to rule the world. Mark and Momo should have already returned to the Dark Tower, but the mental hospital stopped them, and that's when the therapist took Mark's form. He beat up the hospital workers. That's why he burned the hoodie. To erase the evidence, Manleth can change into any form. Now he moves through the house. He steps into Becky's room. She isn't there. His fingers graze the desk. His lips curl into a smirk. Slowly, he picks up a single strand of Becky's hair, and then he places it in his mouth. As soon as he tastes it, he sees everything Becky has done, everything Becky knows, just like how he tasted Mark's blood, and discovered his plan. The therapist discovers that Becky is trying to help Mark and decides to bring her back home. As he sits in the car for a few seconds, his real Manleth face briefly appears before shifting back to his manly appearance. Determined, he sets out to find his daughter Becky. Meanwhile, the party is in full swing, kids are dancing, and the music is blaring. In the theater, Becky searches for the book and finds it soaked in alcohol. Nearby, the flower containing the insect remains undisturbed. Since alcohol is a form of liquid, the creature awakens. Becky recognizes it immediately, having encountered it before. Without alerting anyone, she begins searching for the creature. She knows how deadly it is. She must find it before it's too late. Meanwhile, Ben and Maya stand close together. Ben likes Maya more than Sarah. She's the one who helped him set up the sound system. She made sure everything was perfect. Ben leans in. Just as he's about to kiss her, the insect appears. It has grown, and it attacks Maya. Becky frantically searches, but before she can warn anyone, her father finds her. His voice is smooth, cold. Becky. His eyes glow. You don't need to talk to anyone. Just follow me. Her mind fogs over. Her feet move on their own. She follows him, blindly obedient, like a puppet on strings. At the party, a detective arrives. Mark's mother stands beside him. The music is blaring. The crowd is laughing. But in the shadows, something is terribly wrong because the insect is growing and now it's attacking everyone. The detective doesn't hesitate. He draws his pistol and attempts to shoot the insect. However, the insect knocks him to the ground. Just as it prepares to attack him, Mark's mom grabs the pistol and fires a shot. She hits the insect and the bullet tears through its body. After taking a few more gunshots, the insect lets out a scream and collapses to the ground. It collapses and dies. A moment later, the therapist reaches to the spot where the insect is lying. He stares at the insect and leaves. When the detective and the mother sees the insect shockingly as it has turned into beer, it collapses and dies. The detective and Mark's mother exchange glances. There's no denying it anymore. Everything they were told, the Dark Tower is real. Dark Tower world. Mark jerks awake. His breathing is heavy. Outside, Momo waits, but something is wrong. Moma's eyes are cold. Her voice is sharp. Who killed your father? Mark's head pounds as memories flood back. It was you, Momo says. Mark's stomach drops. What are you talking about? Momo's voice hardens. You are responsible for your father's death? A rage ignites inside Mark. Stop lying. He lunges at Momo, attacking him in fury. As his anger rises, the dark world trembles. Cracks split through the strange planet's layers, and light bursts from the surface. Far away, Father watches as the light spreads, illuminating the master. Now he tells the slave hunters this is the perfect time to capture him. Meanwhile, as Mark lunges at Momo, another Momo appears. Mark stares, confused. The Momo lying on the ground crumbles into sand and vanishes. Momo notices footprints forming in the sand and hurls a stick at them. Suddenly, a manleth materializes. Both Mark and Momo seize the creature and bind it. The manleth shifts its face, taking the form of Momo and Mark's father, attempting to manipulate them with emotions. Mark remains unfazed and moves to set it on fire. The manleth vanishes again. Knowing it is still nearby, Mark persistently tries to burn it. The manleth reappears and speaks. Gryphon sent me to unnerve you, to make you tense. Mark narrows his eyes. If Gryphon wants my brothers or my blood, why is he doing this? The manleth's eyes glimmer. Because it doesn't work like that. Your blood alone isn't enough. The manleth explains that Gryphon and Mark must fight. If Gryphon wins, he will inherit all of Mark's powers, such as the ability to teleport between worlds. With those abilities, Gryphon could conquer other worlds and destroy everything in his path. Mark's mind races. Traveler power. The manleth tilts its head. You still don't get it, do you? You're not just some boy. Mark, you can teleport, you can move anywhere on the same planet, but you haven't unlocked your full potential yet. As they interrogate the manlith, a trap suddenly sounds, signaling the arrival of the slave hunters. Acting quickly, they release the manlith and hide nearby. Back at the party, the police arrive, inspect the beer, and confirm that it was responsible for the attack. However, Mark's mom and the detective know the truth. It wasn't a beer. The detective turns to Mark's mom and says he believed Becky earlier because when Mark's dad died, he personally visited the site of the fire. There was no body, not even ashes. Authorities lied to Mark's mom and the media, showing fake ashes, but in reality, Mark's dad had disappeared. Mark's mom finally starts to believe everything. Becky wakes up in her room and asks her dad what happened. He tells her that a bear attacked people at the party and that it's all over the news. Becky insists it wasn't a bear, but a terrifying insect. The therapist dismisses her claim, saying it was a bear. Frustrated, Becky storms into her room. Maya suffered the most injuries at the party. Though she survived, she fell into a coma, and no one knows when she will recover. Back in the dark world, Mark and Moma spot the slave hunters and secretly follow them. They arrive at a location where many slaves are being forced to work. All the slaves wear the same colored clothing. Since Mark's brother has been among them for so long, identifying him is nearly impossible. To reveal his presence, Mark and Momo decide to play music, a language only Mark's brother, Thomas, would understand. As the melody fills the air, Thomas hears it and raises his hand. Mark and Momo have finally found Thomas. But before they can act, a slave hunter attacks Thomas, dragging him away and locking him in a prison cell. That night, Mark and Momo return to rescue him. Momo distracts the guards by throwing stones, while Mark, as a traveler, teleports directly inside the prison. However, when he tries to escape with Thomas, he realizes he cannot teleport out. The captors have placed a restriction, allowing teleportation but not out. Fortunately, Thomas possesses the metal they had taken from the graveyard. Using it, they break through the rock and escape. As they flee, Momo is captured by the hunters. He fights fiercely but suffers severe injuries, leaving him unable to move. Mark and Thomas place him on a wooden cart and transport him to the portal, hoping to escape the dark world. The hunters report the escape to Gryphon. Enraged, Gryphon kills the messenger and takes flight. A massive and formidable creature, Gryphon soars through the skies in pursuit of Mark and Thomas. Back on Earth, the detective and Mark's mom arrive at Becky's house to help open the portal. Becky agrees to go with them. The therapist, unable to interfere without revealing his true identity, remains helpless. As Becky works on opening the portal from one side, Mark, Thomas, and Momo unknowingly reach the portal from the other side. Thomas demands the metal to open it, but Mark insists on doing it himself. Having spent so much time in the dark world, Thomas has become mentally unstable. Furious, he strikes Mark, knocking him to the ground. He then takes the metal and attempts to open the portal himself, but it doesn't work. Suddenly, Gryphon arrives. Mark regains consciousness just as Gryphon captures Thomas. Using Thomas as bait, Gryphon speaks to Mark, calling him to battle. Since Mark is a traveler, Gryphon knows that if a traveler willingly fights him and loses, all of the traveler's powers will transfer to Gryphon. Gryphon tries to provoke Mark, but instead of engaging, Mark places the metal down and focuses on opening the portal. From the other side, Mark's mom successfully opens the portal. Momo escapes through it. However, if Mark chooses to flee, Thomas will be left behind and Gryphon will kill him. Determined to save his brother, Mark reaches for the metal. It flies into his hand, and he uses it to slash Gryphon's hand. Thomas falls to the ground. Since Mark initiated the battle willingly, Gryphon retaliates with full force. But before Gryphon can attack, Becky and Mark grab Thomas and rush through the portal, sealing it shut behind them. Gryphon, furious, lets out a deafening scream. For now, they have escaped. Meanwhile, the therapist picks up his suitcase and heads for his car. However, before he can leave, another manlith appears and kills him, taking his place. Mark's mom apologizes to Thomas, admitting that she should have believed him and his father all along. She now fully accepts the truth. Ben overhears everything and for the first time believes as well. Mark returns to a normal life, and he and Becky grow closer, eventually falling in love. One day, Mark visits Becky's house. When the therapist opens the door, it is the new manlith who has taken his place. Mark and Becky teleport to the dark world, ready to explore its mysteries together. Now aware of its existence, Ben carries the injured Maya and enters the portal, hoping to find a cure for her condition. However, in doing so, Ben accidentally triggers something. Slave hunters awaken. Gryphon is still alive, and he is still waiting for a traveler traveler to face him, determined to escape the dark world. The series ends here. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the Movie Plot Recap channel and share it with your friends and family. Bye! See you next time.